Attack on Titan Season 2. So this was a really crazy second season. I'd say I really enjoyed this one a lot more than I actually liked the first one. I don't think there was, in the first season, it's the first season of any series, is like you of course have to learn who the people are. This season was like, you know who people are, we're just going to kill more. And surprise, surprise, I feel like there were almost like a dozen revelations in this season, which is insane. But there were so many freaking reveals this season, and it was really fun, especially with the way I watched it, because I wasn't watching it week to week, which is why I didn't review it by episode. It was kind of the same as with the first season. A lot of people were talking about it and stuff, and I was like, okay. For the first season, I don't think I watched that until like almost a year later. And I was like, okay, I see why people like this. But I was like, it was just entertaining to me, and I was like, it's okay. And I thought it was cool, like, the moment with you seemingly have your main character being killed off, and I was like, okay. Like, once that episode hit, I was like, I see why people like this, because once that happened, I was like, okay, what happens next? So that's when things, really picked up there for me. But it was good even before that. This season was like, I already know these people. We have Eren, Mikasa, and Armin, and after that, it was just like, all right, let's just go crazy. Like, it even starts off, they aren't even that important really until like halfway through the season. It's really like other characters, and I actually like that. I love that in a show where it's like, all right, we have our main characters. They have, the whole first season is them. And then this is season 2. We have a ton of characters that we care about, but you only see them every once in a while. Or when you see them, it's like the main characters are actually there as well, and they didn't do that for this, at least for like the first half, and then that's when things start to combine. But you have going from the end of the first season, we come into this and it's like, all right, well, our three main characters are kind of staying out of it because our main character is still healing, so he's doing his thing, and then we go to like everyone else. We have Connie, the other characters, like I suck at names, so like I don't remember like anybody's names, but we go to like every character, Connie and Sasha and all of them. And it's like, man, we're super bored and stuff. Titans show up. That stops all of that. Unfortunately, none of them have time to get their maneuver gear. And that's when the disaster strikes, because it's like, all right, well, we have, I think they had maybe 6 people total that had maneuver gear on, and everyone else, it was just scouts kind of just relaxing, and they weren't allowed to do anything. So it was really chaotic, because I'm like, man, this is going to suck. I was surprised more people didn't die. If I'm being totally honest, I was like, man, there's going to be a lot of dead people this season. Like, I could tell that from the first episode. Once things got crazy, it's like, okay, we have to split up. We have to go off to these villages. It's like, okay, well, my village is over here and my village is over there. And it's like, first episode, we go through and it's like, all right, you guys do that. I'm going to go, whoever that commander was, I'm going to take out these Titans. He was doing his thing. And then here comes the Beast Titan, and that was like the one leak. Honestly, this is a show where somehow I managed to stay away from the leaks. I just don't really care that much. So I didn't get anything spoiled except for that. And like in season 1, I knew who the main Titan was. And so I was like, okay, well, I know he can talk and everything like that. I didn't know that he could stop everyone and stop the other Titans and tell them what to do. So I was like, okay, well, that's something I didn't know. But he comes in and it's like, huh, how about this? Like this little maneuver gear and stuff like that. And it's very interesting because he didn't know what that was. I had a guess as to who that character was in the beginning, but that scene kind of destroyed that, like my whole theory for that, because I assumed it was going to end up being Eren's father. Like that was just my guess, but that was not the case at all. Especially by the end, I was like, I don't know who this dude is, but his father didn't seem like he was super buff under that shirt from season 1, so that was just my guess. And plus, he doesn't look like that. So it was interesting. He comes in, we have a talking Titan, that was insane. Rips that dude apart, he's like, oh, you guys go ahead and, kill this dude. He gets ripped apart and it's crazy. And then we have the characters going to their villages and stuff. And that's when we get like our first moment where it's like, oh, the Titans aren't just random people that can turn into Titans. They're people turned into Titans. Like, it's basically revealed in the first episode. You have a mother, where of course it's not officially revealed, but it's like, you have this young man who goes to this village. Everyone sees the chaos, but there's no bodies, there's no blood, it's just buildings destroyed. So it's like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, Titans don't attack, they don't destroy like this. Like, they might run through something because they're Titans, but they don't destroy like this unless there are people around. So what in the world happened? And then of course we have this Titan that starts to talk just a little bit. And I love the way this happened, because during that moment, it was like, we have a character, Connie is like, he hears his mom. And so it's like, hey, did you hear that? And then we have our other character, who eventually is revealed to be the Armor Titan, he's like, I didn't hear anything. They kind of do that in TV all the time, so I kind of ignored it. But he was like, I didn't hear anything, let's go. And I was like, man, he's kind of rushing him to not even listen to the concept of what may or may not be happening. And then a few episodes later, it was like, oh, I see. That's why he was rushing him, because he definitely heard that she could talk, and he was like, I didn't hear anything, let's get out of here, because they have a certain plan in motion. So I thought that was a great little moment when you go back and like look at moments from the earlier in the season. It's like, oh, that's why they said this, or that's why they did this, and you can of course go back to the beginning of the series now, knowing certain secrets. So going through, that's like your first crazy thing where it's like, oh, people are actually just flat out turned into Titans. That's crazy, but it's revealed early on. And then it goes through and we get to the castle. We get to like this little castle moment. And right there, it was already a really good season. Like, it was already, I think this was only episode 3 when this happened, 3 or 4. And so it's already a fast-paced season and everything. It's like, all right, well, how does this play out? We got all the people getting killed off. We have all our scouts who have no maneuver gear. They fight off a Titan and stuff, which kind of makes sense. I don't know if being able to turn into a Titan translates into when you're in your normal physical form, but I don't know. I mean, dude got bit on the arm. Like I said, I suck at names, so I'm sorry I can't think of anyone's name. It's like I know like the first half, but I don't want to even bother screwing up their names. Because I know it's like Barrelholt or something like that. But he gets bit on the arm, he lifts a Titan, and I was like, well, that's insane. But they all almost die anyway, so they're driven up to the top of the tower. We have a really crazy scene. When those guards got killed off, it was pretty intense because they're going through and you have this one dude, all he wanted was a freaking drink. And so he ends up being like, he ends up going into the building, like a different level or something. It's like, well, if I'm gonna die, at least I get a drink. And he lifts it up, nothing comes out, and it's like, wow. Like, it's a cruel god, and he gets pulled out, and he gets murdered. And I'm pretty sure he died before he was eaten because it looked like he like hit his head as the Titan was like pulling him out. He like bashed his head and it like snapped his neck and killed him instantly. But I was like, wow, that's effing messed up. And even more messed up than him was when the woman died because she fell in and she just started screaming about her father, like, I'll be a good girl and stuff. And she's like trying to fight him off and they're like ripping her legs off and crap. And I was like, that's super tough. Like, I don't know if there's been another scene, at least before that, where I was like, it truly felt that bad. Because normally it's just like, wow, that sucks. But most of the times where the characters die, it's like instantaneously. Like, they'll get swiped out of the air or smashed into a tree, or, depending on which type of Titan it is, they'll just get, chomped right in midair. And it's like, holy crap, I didn't see that coming. But in that scene, I feel like that was really the first moment outside of the, first episode where it's like slow motion and we're watching this woman be killed in front of her son. Outside of that moment, I think those two people dying was like the craziest thing the show had up to that point, because it was just like, as far as like emotionally speaking, just watching, especially because it was random characters, it was just like, wow, that's super harsh. Like, it's just a drink. The dude's about to get ripped apart in an insanely painful way. Just a little drink. That's all he wanted, and it was just like a crazy moment. So that was nuts. The way she died was crazy, and then that whole episode was weird because it starts off like halfway through the episode where it's like, okay, well, here's a can of tuna. And it's like, well, I can't read this. How can you read this language? And of course it goes to the normal suspense thing. Is like, are you something? And then it cuts off because the Titans come in. So we get that scene twice, and it's like, what is this crazy mystery? We get everyone up to the top of the tower. We have our first revelation for this season where it's like, holy crap, we have another person that's a Titan. I thought that was probably going to be like the peak of weird. And that was just like, that was the very tip of the iceberg. So that happens, blah, blah, blah. Some people die, some people live. We go through some revelations. We find out that Krista is actually named Historia. She's actually a part of this really famous family. And, she has a very, particular bond with someone we found out was a Titan. Like I said, sorry, I can't think of literally anyone's names. Like, I flew through it, and it was just like names and names, and I was just like, there's so much extra like story stuff happening. I barely paid attention to like even learning anyone's name, because I was just like, this is nuts. That's crazy. This woman, former fake princess who was like stoned and then turned into a Titan, kicked off a wall, which couldn't have been one of the 3 walls, so it had to be a different wall, way, way outside of the 3 walls that we know currently, which is very clear. They talk about that like crazy during the second half of the season, but this is some way off crazy thing where they're just turning people into Titans as punishment. So it's like a man-made thing. She gets kicked off this thing, turned into a Titan. Find out that she's like 60 something years old, probably 70 something. She was a Titan for 60 years. She seems like she's, close to like being in her 20s or so. So, they're all teenagers. So she's like 70 something years old. And it's like, okay, well, there's a slight reference to how she doesn't remember, like they talk about how she doesn't remember all of her time, and then the same for the guys, where it's, once again, one of the crazy reveals, which is super nonchalant. It's like, hey, can we talk to you? I'm Armored Titan, he's Colossal Titan. It's just like, okay, that's insane. But moving, past that, we get some other crazy stuff where it's like, I don't remember all that time. It's like, yeah, me neither. It doesn't seem like Eren does either. I was like, what does that even mean? So how old is Eren? Like, we saw him as a kid, we skipped 5 years, but I've always wondered, because there was no answer in the first season, what happened during the scene when he was talking with his father. There was the scene where his father gives him the key and all that stuff, and he wakes up with the key like around his neck. But it couldn't be that much time. It couldn't have been, that much time, because they never brought it up like, hey, you went missing for like a month or a few weeks or anything. It was like it was basically like right after he saw his mom get killed and he like fainted. They have that dream, well, it wasn't a dream sequence, but he sees his father injects him, which is him turning his son into a Titan, and then he wakes up with the key. So it's like, well, was he, like, it was confusing when they referenced that, because it was like, well, we saw his time span, we saw that it was 5 years, or, however many years it was, him learning to be a cadet and everything. So, I don't know what that means when it's like that slight reference, like, yeah, he doesn't seem to remember either. So, who the F knows what the heck that means, but we have our characters. We have the cool action sequence once everything's kind of revealed for the Colossal Titan and the Armored Titan. I thought that was a really good action sequence. We actually have like some flashbacks to some action from the last season, some of which we saw, some we didn't. And I thought that was cool. It's like, okay, Eren's learning lessons from his former enemies, oddly enough, to use on his current enemies. And then we go through some real vague revelations, because it's like, we don't want to do this, we don't want to kill these people, but we have to do this, and it's like, you guys couldn't understand what's going on, and we don't really understand what's going on. It's absolutely insane. But in the end, it's just effing nuts. Like, it's just a crazy final 2 episodes where it's just a bunch of effing Titans, it's a bunch of people fighting. We have the Titan from the beginning of this series that killed Eren's mom. She comes back, she kills Hannes, which was a crazy scene. That was actually a phenomenal sequence where he actually dies and then they show Eren's reaction. And it was like, wow, that is super effed up. And then it's revealed that he has a new ability. Not only can he transform into a Titan, but he is what they were considering the coordinate. And unfortunately for Reiner and Bertolt, Eren's a good guy. So, it's like, crap, if anyone, they have a whole line where he's like, if there's anyone that I don't want to have it, it is you, because I know you're going to fight us on what we need to, whatever our plans are. So, Eren is whatever this coordinate is. He's able to control Titans, anyone who's not, like, in complete control of their abilities, because both Reiner and Bertolt actually realize what's happening. Finally remember both their names. But he's able to control Titans and tell them what to do, and he punches the Titan, which I thought was interesting, that she even blocked his hand like that. Like, it wasn't like she went to grab him and he punched her hand while she was trying to pick him up. It was almost like she knew what was happening and she was just like, nope, even though his hand is like this anyway to her. But I was like, I can't really tell, because there was something different. Like with Hannes, it was hard to say if it was like, it was clear he chose to be like a specific type of person within the military, so he didn't have to go out and scout and everything. So it was like, it was a combination of him not being as skilled as other people normally are. Plus, she was moving around like crazy. Like, she seemed to turn really, really fast. And I thought there was going to be a new revelation where she was actually another person, and maybe we wouldn't know who she was. But I just thought it was very interesting during that sequence. And it kind of just ended up being she was just reaching out slowly, and there was no revelation outside of his power. And she got like ripped to shreds, and it got pretty gruesome. Like the part where they show them pulling her head, I just assumed it was going to be like how they normally do it, where they show people screaming and like the camera's moving but the characters are frozen. It was like, nope, her head is actually still being pulled, and they show it like rip off, and I was like, oh, I thought it was like one of the still images, and it actually ripped her head off, and I was like, oh, that was interesting. But crazy revelation at the end of the episode. And of course, he sends all the Titans after Reiner Bertolt, and Chris is, of course, left behind by her possible love interest. We'll see how they decide to do that in the next season, especially with the way they split up. But the three of them end up taking off. They get to the outermost wall. And it's like, all right, well, let's get some answers. So they're going back to wherever their hometown is, however far away it may be, and we have to wait like another year unless you decide to read the manga. I heard that it was chapter 51, I believe, was a good point to pick up from if you want to like go from here and actually just jump straight to the manga at this point. But for me, I'll just wait. Most likely I'll end up waiting. I don't know. I've kind of thought about like, do I want to read it? Do I not want to read it? And I just don't think I'm interested enough. I'm just like, eh. Like it didn't like drive me crazy. I didn't realize it was 4 years. When season 2 came out, I was like, man, it's been a while. But for me, I could have sworn it had only been like a year. I don't know why. I was like, oh, it's only been like a year or something, like a year and a half, maybe 2 years. It took a minute for it to come out, and then everyone's like, it's been 4 years since season 1. We can only, we can wait a year. I was like, was it 4 years? Like that's, if I didn't fail, that would have been all of my college. But that was crazy to me. So apparently it's only a year this time, which is nothing compared to 4. But it was a really good second season. I like flew through it. I thought the season was over when I started watching, and then I realized I caught up. I think I had like I caught up when there were only like 3 episodes left to go anyway. So I was like, okay, well, I watched one, and then I waited for the last 2, and I just ended up watching them both. I didn't know the season finale was coming up so soon either, and I was like, oh, it's the end? I'll just watch the last 2 episodes then, and that's how I ended up catching up so fast. I was like shooting through it because I thought it was already over because the dubbed episodes started coming on Toonami, and I watched like the first dubbed episode and then just jumped to everything else. But really great season. Excited for season 3. For those of you who are super, super excited, you don't have to wait 4 years, so I'm sure that's great. For me, I'm just excited, whenever it decides to come back, it'll come back. I think it'll be interesting going into season 3. With the way they did this one, the revelations, I don't think they'll be as hard and fast as they were in this season, because it was just like hit after hit after hit. It was just like, yeah, I'm a Titan. I'm actually this secret person. We're both Titans. We're actually the main villain Titans. There's also this secret village outside. Turns out that all Titans, at least that can control them, actually all Titans in general are humans, but we still don't get the explanation as to how certain Titans are able to control themselves and others cannot. So there's still that. We still don't know why certain Titans come out in certain ways. Like we've had like 5 different types of Titans really. So we have armored, colossal. Eren and Annie were kind of similar, but she just had better. She had like that diamond thing, and Eren doesn't seem to have that. He has like quick healing. I think compared to everyone else, he heals the fastest. And then I swear, I'm trying to remember her name. I feel like it starts with a V, but I can't remember. She's like a little like she's a biter. That's like her thing. She's like the smaller one, and she can like jump around and lunge. So everyone has like their unique abilities. And it's like, well, we still don't know why that's the case, but now we know they're all humans. And that's still another mystery, like, what the heck is going on? Why is everyone trying to destroy mankind? Or why is this other part of mankind, I guess, trying to destroy mankind? Are they impervious to Titans? Like, do Titans know, don't attack us because we made you, go attack them? So there's just a bunch of crazy questions that are still kind of out in the world, but definitely a great season. Lots of crazy revelations. Of course, quite a few deaths. We almost had the death of like the head commander, which was crazy. And he's like, charge forward. And this Titan was just kind of waiting like, here he comes. Got his arm. And I was like, holy crap. But he lived. So that was very interesting. I don't think they'll be going, anime robot arm in the next season. So I am curious to see how that plays out. Maybe Levi will officially take over. But I thought that was very interesting because I thought for sure, like, if anyone gets bit, you assume in Attack on Titan that they are done for. So it was very interesting. Like, he's just like, they're having their big prideful moment. Like, we're going for it. We're gonna get Eren. We're gonna bring him back, take out the Titans if we can, but most likely we'll get him in retreat. That was really the plan. And it's like, we charge forward, and it was just like, gotcha, arm gone. So he kept fighting. People kept dying around him, like trying to protect him and stuff, but he lived because he's a main character. But it was just interesting. I was like, wow, I didn't see that one coming. So he's probably out of the game. Maybe not. We'll just have to wait and see how that plays out. They skip a couple of weeks. You can tell because he had like a beard and everything going from healing, like the actual end of the last episode when they all talk about, we don't know for sure, but we assume that, Titans are humans. He kind of smirks, but we don't get the answer to that because Levi had the most expression ever because his eyes kind of went up a little when they said that Titans might be humans. He was just like, it was like a little bit. I was like, wow, that's emotion. So, interesting ending, without a doubt. And then, of course, we have, like, the Beast Titan. And he's just, it's like the actual form is sitting there, and this buff older dude gets out, and he says, "Not yet, huh?" And then it ends. And I was like, oh, that's not only is that not Aaron's dad like I was expecting it to be, but it's just random, and something didn't happen yet. So I'm like, was that about the wall not being destroyed? Because I would assume he was on the outermost wall. I would have to assume, or maybe he was on the second wall. It was hard to say because that was like the whole thing is that they were looking at the second wall to make sure nothing broke, but they were Titans just being brought in. So I'm assuming he was on like the second wall, and it was like, oh, not yet. So something else didn't happen. It's hard to say what the heck that's going to end up being, but definitely a great season. Would love to know your favorite moments from it. Maybe you can actually tell me the characters' names because I suck at names, and it's really bad for me when it's a show that especially with the way I watch this show. When I binge watch stuff, that's the worst because that's when I don't ever learn anyone's names. Like I'll know the main characters, and I'll kind of remember some other names, like Reiner Bergholtz or however you're supposed to pronounce his name. And Sasha and Connie, I remember, is like those are kind of like simple names you hear in the States all the time. So it's like some names I can easily remember, but the names that are like most important for this season, I feel I could not freaking remember for the life of me. But really enjoyed this season. I thought it was a really good season. Like I said, I feel like this was pretty much twice as good, if not like 3 times better than the first season, which was already really good. This one just had, it was hard hitting from beginning to end. It wasn't like in the first season when they go through training, I was kind of bored. Like the first couple episodes, honestly, after like the first crazy moment, when the Titans attack, all the scout stuff, I was honestly bored watching those episodes. I was like, I don't, like none of this entertains me like at all. There's a couple of things, but it was like, this is just like typical anime to me. Like nothing felt special at all. And then when they got to fighting, I was like, okay, it's kicking in. Then seemingly main character dies, and then he comes back as a Titan and is like, well, what does that mean? Crazy people freaking out trying to blow them up with rockets. That one dude was losing his mind when he was being so scared. Um, but this is definitely just top to bottom. It was like revelations and madness. So I loved it. Can't wait to see what we get from season 3. Of course, would love to know what you guys thought about this season. Favorite episodes, least favorite episodes if you have one. There's like really only 2 episodes where it was like you have something where it's kind of slow paced. It's like when we find out Historia's real name. The first part of that was like slow paced just because they show that little moment where, their backstory. And that was really it. And before that, I think the episode before the finale was a bit slower paced as well, leading up to it. But it was still a lot of stuff in there where it was like, yeah, this happened and that happened in 60 years and stuff. So, like, there was still a lot of interesting stuff in there. It just wasn't, like, crazy, crazy. And then it picked up, of course, when it hit the end because it was leading to a crazy finale. But would love to know what you guys thought about this season. So please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts about this season, least favorite parts about it. Of course, want to know your theories and just what you guys want to see in general for season 3. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.